Today's video is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to build a brand, grow your business, or pursue your passion. Ugh, it might be too dark. I don't know if it's picking up, but yes, I did wear something plaid today because we're talking about a Scottish show. It's called Environmental Storytelling. Hello, class. Listen, I thought I was done. Talking about real person ships. But you know what? You're never done. Tumblr draws me in every time. Today, we are talking about the supposed relationship between two stars of the romance show Outlander in the fan culture, which became obsessed, of course, with proving that these two hot people were together in real life. And naturally, of course, this all culminates in William Shatner inserting himself into the Twitter discourse as to whether shipping these two actors was in fact an ethical or appropriate thing to overdo. And if you're not familiar with online shipping culture, first of all, I'm jealous. I did make a playlist of other real person ships I've talked about, and they continue to be just a fascinating insight into the online psyche. But right now, we're talking about Outlander. What the hell is an Outlander? Outlander is a historical drama where a 1940s British nurse is accidentally sent back in time to the 18th century Scottish Highlands, as you do, and oh no, she has to marry a handsome, charming Scotsman, and they kiss a whole bunch. This show becomes a major success, particularly with middle-aged women, because much like the books that this show is based on, this show is well known for having some very spicy scenes where their hot lead actors roll around and stuff. I don't know. You know, when I started researching this video, I'm not gonna lie, I was intrigued. So I did start watching the show, and why didn't anyone warn me? This show has so much excessive and violent SA scenes almost every episode, and I googled it to see if maybe this is just like an early season thing. They didn't have an intimacy coordinator at that point, but oh no, Reddit told me that it actually only gets worse and more frequent in later seasons, so I couldn't even finish the first season of the show. I thought I was signing up for a fun Scottish romance show, and it was like one of the least fun viewing experiences I've had in years. I know I'm already going to irritate so many Outlander fans, and my review of the show that I just gave is certainly not helping that, but I can't in good conscience talk about this show to my audience who may decide to give it a watch after this video and not mention how graphic it is. Please, y'all, just proceed with caution if you decide to watch this show. With that warning aside, as I said, it's a very popular show and a lot of people do love it, and I've watched more than one season, like me. The fan culture around Outlander really is fascinating and at times can be incredibly toxic. And what's particularly unique about this Outlander fan culture is just how much academia and think pieces are dedicated to evaluating the cultural implications of the Outlander fandom. Go to Google Scholar, you will find dissertations on Outlander, some of which I am referencing today. The Outlander fandom got its start in the early days of internet forums, when the author of the books, Diana Gabaldon, posted some of her work online and was actually encouraged by this very niche online community to publish her work, and thus Outlander was born. So this franchise and the fandom has really grown directly parallel to internet fandom generally, and with the show launching in 2014, the stage was perfectly set for the rat website itself, Tumblr, to get its little claws into it. I'm sure a lot of you know that 2014 was the most pure, unadulterated height of online fan culture. There wasn't this concept of irony or post-irony that you see today. It was just accepted at that time that you watched a TV show or you read a book series, and that piece of media just was your entire personality, at least for a few months. You watched every press interview. You followed every random staff member vaguely associated with the project on Twitter. And you absolutely hit your daily Tumblr post limit every day, filling your blogs with like 20 pixel GIFs. The creators of the show Outlander were also no strangers to fan culture at that time. The showrunner Ronald Moore previously was the showrunner of Battlestar Galactica. Dare I say, perhaps one of the earliest examples of this all-encompassing fan culture. Poor Ron's adaptation of this series was initially met with a lot of hostility, leading to the launch of the fan chat room called Ron Moore Sucks, where the fans lovingly referred to him as More Ron. He kind of walked into that one, being born with that name and all. But despite its initial controversy, good old Moron pushed through and launched a podcast which would release after each episode of Battlestar Galactica, where he would discuss behind the scenes, his creative process, and he really presented himself as just like one of the fans who was lucky enough to reboot the series. And good for him, because if y'all found a way to call me an idiot using a pun on my name, I'd just delete my channel, personally. And that strategy of marketing himself as a fan first really did continue with the Outlander franchise. Well, technically, his wife, Terry Dresbach, was a huge fan of the novels and was hired as the main costume designer on the series. And she also then served as a fan liaison, again, mostly on Twitter, but also she was there to supposedly call out Ron personally when he diverged from the source material in a controversial way. Gabaldon, the author of the book series, was also a key figure in the Outlander fan culture. Long before the show was announced, she was often interacting with fans on Twitter, answering questions, confirming theories, and even promoting certain fan works, like, for example, the Outlander Anatomy blog, which was a fan blog run by medical students that attempted to teach people human anatomy through the lens of Outlander. One lesson, for example, focused on ears and cartilage and referenced a scene in which a child's ear is nailed to a pillar. Another glorious in-depth analysis focused on the gluteus maximus, specifically, of course, on the character Jamie's ass. See, this is why I love the internet. And despite Diana's love of anatomical ass analysis, Diana famously detested fan fiction, which, as many of you know, is one of the central pillars of basically any online fan culture. In a blog post written in 2008, since removed but reposted in various places, Gabaldon called fan fiction immoral, illegal, and simple-minded sex fantasies. While Gabaldon does admit that not all fan fiction is pornographic, enough of it is that it constitutes an aesthetic argument against the whole notion. Further, Gabaldon goes on to compare fan fiction to breaking into someone's house, even if the goal isn't to steal anything, or trespassing in someone's backyard, even if there's no plan to plant illegal drugs on the property. Perhaps even more controversially, Gabaldon considered fan fiction akin to selling children into slavery, before adding, "It makes me want to barf." In a more measured statement, that's right, Diana walked that one back, she said while she finds it flattering that people wish to engage with her novels by writing fan fiction, she says that she's not comfortable with it and requests that people not write it, not send it to her, and not publish it in print or on the internet. This take, understandably, is very controversial within the Outlander fandom and just generally speaking, kind of a crazy thing to say. But perhaps because Diana is still widely revered within the Outlander fandom, there really is not as much Outlander fanfiction as you would expect given how large and how energized this fan base is. I don't think that you can necessarily draw a straight line between these statements and the subject of this video, but I do find it interesting that the most popular Outlander ship and the one with the most dedicated fan fiction, fan theories, fan edits is not of the main characters Jamie and Claire. It is shipping the two real-life lead actors, Sam Ewan and Katrina Balfe. In any sexy romance show, the on-screen chemistry of your two leads is incredibly important. Both Sam and Katrina were fairly unknown at the start of the show, and their undeniable acting ability and on-screen chemistry was a huge part of the show's initial success. And when you have two hot romantic leads, it's also not uncommon to hear of them potentially having off-screen chemistry as well. I mean, just a few months ago, we were all obsessed with talking about Sydney Sweeney and that, one guy and their supposed flirtation on the set of their new rom-com. And we certainly cared way more about that than anyone actually cares about the film itself, that's for sure. And fans of Outlander quickly noticed that Sam and Katrina do seem to have a lot of off-screen chemistry. And I will not pretend that they don't have a lot of fun, flirty vibes in a lot of these interviews. They do.
Do you believe in love at first sight?
Do I believe in love at first sight?
But I also don't think enough people consider that all of these interviews are them promoting a show in which they play romantic leads. So there is an incentive for them to present themselves as a fun, flirty, will they, won't they in public. And also people can just be flirty. That's not a crime. Doesn't mean that you're dating the person either. Despite the fact that these two have never confirmed that they were in a relationship or dated and have in fact publicly denied that being the case, a small but very vocal group of real-life shippers have emerged around Sam and Katrina. Like any real-life ship, there is a spectrum to the shippers. I would say many of them just enjoy watching compilations of cute moments between them, or they just like the idea of these two dating. They don't actually believe that to be the case. However, it is worth noting that it's often very hard to visually distinguish who is just shipping for fun and who actually believes and actually wants these two to date. Those people are generally all reblogging the same things. It's hard to tell. Other Sam and Katrina shippers do, however, believe that these two either did date for some time or are together to this day, and are not allowed to reveal this for a variety of reasons, the most common one seemingly being that the company Stars, the production company, has a no fraternizing rule for their actors. And I guess the idea is that if people knew that they were dating in real life, it would somehow distract from or diminish their romance on screen, or that they would potentially break up and ruin the chemistry on the show. I mean, none of it really makes sense to me, because I would think that them dating in real life would be like a huge marketing point for the show. But I mean, we have to have some sort of justification for why this is a secret relationship, right? There was also an interview with Sam Ewan where he basically says that even if Sam and Katrina did date in real life, they wouldn't announce it to the public because they don't want the world examining their interpersonal relationships like that, which to me is a signal that, hey, these two adults don't want an entire fan culture speculating on their relationship status. Let's leave it alone. But to the shippers, to the people who believe they are dating in real life, this quote basically acts as confirmation that, of course, Sam and Claire are dating, and of course they would deny their relationship. They said they would deny it. So naturally, we just have to try and prove harder until they have no choice but to finally admit it to everyone. And I'm sure y'all can already guess, this theory isn't just that Sam and Katrina had a secret fling. No, the theory also can include that Stars hired fake significant others, beards for Sam and Katrina to fake date, that Sam and Katrina have been secretly married for 7 years, and that they have anywhere from 1 to 5 secret children together at their secret residence that they share in secret. Five children. The evidence for these pregnancies is basically any time Katrina has looked slightly bloated or weared something non-form-fitting to an event. People will take that and think that she is secretly pregnant, which I'll just say, speculating on someone's pregnancy status is right up there with speculating on someone's sexual orientation for me. Just don't do that. You do not know if someone is struggling to get pregnant. If someone doesn't already have body issues, you could very well give them body issues by pointing out anytime they eat Chipotle and have a little tummy. It's just not a nice thing to do, plain and simple. Of course, I had to save some of my favorite goofy theories and evidence posts I found over the past few days researching this. The fact that you believe C has more children is enough to put you in the extreme column of shippers. Or are you in the extreme column because you apparently don't believe Sam and Katrina have more than one child? I love when conspiracy shippers do that. You are the crazy one, actually, for not believing my unconfirmed and incredibly elaborate fan theory. We have this one where Katrina just says hooked and posted a bunch of pictures of hooks on a wall. And I guess a comment said hooked on Sam, and for some reason the date is circled here. I don't know, you can kind of just put red circles around anything and it'll just start to look important, significant. There's this post analyzing Katrina's supposed pregnancies. The most common sign at the beginning of pregnancy is an enlarged breast before the belly appears. I did not see in all receipts provided for Kate's previous pregnancies any breast enlargement. All pictures shown, the breasts are in their normal size. Watch Kate in season 6 and how her body changed during early and late pregnancy. That was when she was secretly pregnant with her child that they didn't announce. And then compare what you see with your receipts. In fact, I believe Sam and Kate have only one child. I did watch Kate. I've been watching her closely over the years, and thankfully there was a lot of nudity in previous scenes. I'm actually happy you mentioned her breasts, as creepy as it may sound, but compare her body in season 1 with her body in season 3. And while you're at it, take a close look at her belly when they fall into bed in the reunion ep. It's all carefully coordinated, and Sam is covering her entire body, but there was a slip, like in The Reckoning, when she gasped his name, his real name. In the reunion scene, you can see her round tummy that looks a lot different than bloating. And trust me, I know, because I've been battling with irritable bowel syndrome for years, and bloating comes with the territory. Shout out to my fellow IBS warriors out there. We stand strong. I haven't said it in a while, so I'll say it now. There are really only 2 possible scenarios we're looking at. Both involve them lying. Either Sam and Kate are together, or one or both of them is gay. I'm going with the former, although their increasingly weird behavior makes the latter seem entirely plausible. You heard it here first. Gay people, they're weird. Either way, they're hiding something because they both have an effect of guilt. We see the frozen smiles when they pose together now. They look uncomfortable because they're self-conscious. They're self-conscious because they're guilty. Guilty people are defensive. They turn on people and do things like block fans on Christmas Day when they get too close to the truth. Perhaps they're giving uncomfortable body language because of this. Just gonna say this. Dear Sam and Kate, but mostly Sam, you have taken us down this path before. We called no backsies after Comic-Con, and we called no backsies after you two couldn't stop calling each other hubby and wifey. Yet you took it all back. I put smiley faces out for you too. I went on a limb and put those out there because I felt comfortable doing so. 3 strikes and you're out. You call backsies on this right now and you are dead to me. Us. Hashtag dead to me. These posts and theories are all well and good as long as you ignore all the times these two have publicly denied that they are dating.
It's great. It's great that we were able to get along that well, but we're not together. And I'm sorry to break people's hearts, but, they like to try and I don't know, maybe replicate the Claire and Jamie story.
Right,
but I think it would be difficult for us to work together. And
I think if we then say, we're saying, it's not real. It's not, they feel like they've been duped.
Katrina for many years dated and is now married to Tony McGill, who is a business owner and music producer who maintains a very low public profile. Although you can find pictures of them together, I think as early as 2014, many did not even know that Katrina was dating him until she secretly got married to Tony at a small ceremony in 2019. Katrina seems to be a very private person, and she didn't post any pictures of this wedding. She said it was an event just for herself, her friends, her family. So by shipping standards, this of course means that the wedding never happened. My favorite proof of this fake wedding is this analysis of Sam Ewan's Instagram picture he took, where he was a guest at Katrina and Tony's wedding, where he again respects their privacy and does not post a picture of Katrina and her husband's actual ceremony. Hey, big fella, good to see the groom, her fuck buddy, bestie. Sam, you look very nice in that photo. I'm not gonna lie though. I was a little surprised to see you acknowledging Kate's wedding by posting a photo of yourself. Even for you, it seemed a bit much. The other thing I want to mention is the emojis. You used some very suggestive emojis. The umbrella wasn't necessary, though. We know it rained. Or was it remarkable rain? Anyway, just saying, there were some other emojis that would have been more direct than love, rain, and champagne, and good times. Like these. I think when we get into emoji analysis, that's when you gotta close the computer. That's when you gotta walk away. That's when we're starting to get a little too lost in the sauce, I think. Fans were even more shocked when suddenly in August of 2021, Katrina announced that she had given birth to a baby boy with her husband Tony. But their shock quickly turned to anger when Katrina gave this spiteful Vanity Fair interview in which she expressed concerns for her son's safety due to the at times threatening behavior of some of these real-life shippers. Balfe says that after she married her husband, Scottish music manager Anthony McGill, in 2019, she found out that someone had called to harass the secretary of the church where the wedding took place. They didn't believe her marriage was real. She'd also gotten wind that private investigators had been hired to solve the case and prove definitively that she was involved with Sam Ewan. When you have a kid, you become really protective, Balfe says. I don't want those crazies because that's what they are. I just don't want them talking about him. So you won't find the name of her son in this article, and you won't find photos of him on her social media. Being a new mom has necessitated an additional layer of armor for Balfe. It's sad because you meet the loveliest people who are fans of the show, and they're super supportive and they do the nicest things, and then you have that little thing which just taints it. I'm sure you won't be surprised to learn that at least some of these shippers believe that this baby is actually Sam and Katrina's, although interestingly, no one has claimed that this baby is a doll. Not even once. These shippers are slacking. So I'm sure you're all foaming at the mouth, just waiting in anticipation to hear how exactly William Shatner inserts himself in this story. Well, don't worry. William Shatner delivers. Up until this point, I was kind of meh on whether I should talk about this ship, but William Shatner absolutely sends this story into the stratosphere for me, which is appropriate because he was famously a spaceman on TV one time. But before we continue, a brief word about today's sponsor, Squarespace. As many of y'all know, I have recently been blessed with the opportunity to launch the website picturesofgoose.squarespace.com. Squarespace has countless beautiful templates that you can pick from, all to suit your needs. And with this feature, I was able to put in just some beautiful pictures of Goose. I told you, this website's about Goose. And this process could not have been easier. Thanks to Squarespace's asset library, I was able to upload everything I needed on one central hub and use it all throughout my website. With Squarespace's Fluid Engine design system, you're able to take these pre-made templates, which already look great, and then totally customize them to suit your brand. You really can customize every detail with their reimagined drag and drop technology, which works for desktop or mobile. So for example, not only did I have these beautiful pictures of Goose, I was also able to put in some real life testimonials from real 100% real people who interacted with Goose. So whether you're running a business, you want to start a blog, or you too want to launch a website with just pictures of Goose, Squarespace is the place to do it. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Ashley Norton for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to it. Shatner is famously a weird little guy. He is not on speaking terms with many of his Star Trek co-stars, and even though he had a very close off-screen friendship with Leonard Nimoy, who played Spock on the show, even they were supposedly not on speaking terms in the last few years of Nimoy's life. In George Takei's 2004 memoir, he stated, "Shatner is a cantankerous old fossil. All of us have had problems with him. There is this fiction that Bill and Leonard Nimoy were good friends, but we know better." Leonard privately expressed his irritation with Bill. Bill is an egocentric, self-involved prima donna. So yeah, some of his coworkers don't have the greatest things to say about him. But Shatner has also in many ways been considered very progressive, particularly in the 60s and 70s. When his character Kirk kissed a black woman on screen, one of the first televised interracial kisses, he fought with the network to ensure that the scene actually aired. And he even intentionally messed up his kissing scenes with a white woman to make sure that the program would have no choice but to air this kiss. Star Trek was also really the beginning of modern fan fiction and shipping culture. Spurk, the ship of Spock and Kirk, is still one of the most iconic ships to date. And Shatner had a bemused enjoyment for the phenomenon. By no means was he like ultimate ally, yes, they're gay, confirmed. But the fact that he never responded to it with outright homophobia or discouragement was quite a surprise, particularly to fans from his generation at the time. All of that to say, William Shatner is also no stranger to shipping fan culture, and he is more than willing to be divisive on Twitter, which makes the perfect recipe for some fandom shenanigans. I know I mentioned earlier that Outlander has overwhelmingly female fans, but wouldn't you know it, William Shatner, he's a huge fan of the series. William Shatner one day got lunch with Sam Ewan, and actually Sam Ewan's girlfriend at the time. The lunch went so well that Sam even donated a sweater he had worn to be auctioned off for one of William Shatner's horse charity events. Shatner said, "His pheromones floating over the airways meant we got $5,000 for charity." So it has been a wonderful long-distance relationship Sam and I have. And so Sam Ewan and William Shatner become unlikely internet besties. And one thing about William Shatner is he's gonna go all out for his internet bestie. See, everything was peaceful until Paul Camuso, one of Shatner's assistants, responded to a shipper's tweet and said, "I know for a fact that Sam and Katrina are not dating." And that's when the firestorm started. Paul ended up deleting this tweet due to the immediate backlash, but Shatner was not about to back down from this fight. He began publicly calling out fans for harassing Sam and Katrina, made clear that they were not dating, and even posted pictures of Sam with his then girlfriend, just to be petty, really. But it didn't even stop there. William Shatner then began quote tweeting and screen capping people he deemed to be problematic shippers and encouraging his 2 million Twitter followers to report these accounts for harassment. So if Queen Jess has mental health issues as implied by a troll this morning, where are her dear friends to convince her to get help? If this is the case, and one would think that with her bizarre belief of a romance where none exists that may be the case, then get her help. Surely that can't be okay to say, right? That's William Shatner, that's not it. Hi, Editing Ash here. I can't believe I forgot to emphasize that this whole William Shatner Outlander fight did not just happen over a couple of days. It went on for years and is pretty much like still going to this day. And he even managed to give the Destiel shipper some strays throughout this Outlander beef. You know, William Shatner and I disagree about a lot of things. But you have to admire his consistency. While I would tend to agree with Shatner that shipping real-life people, especially to this extent, is not appropriate, especially in this circumstance where Sam and Katrina have expressed that they're not dating and they find the implication uncomfortable, there is still something to be said about Shatner sort of punching down a bit too hard, considering he is a mainstream celebrity And while some of these fans had notable blogs and maintained a somewhat public image, most were just everyday Twitter users who probably were not prepared for all 2 million of Shatner's fans to potentially come over and report them. And I think he did realize this because he did later post, "Okay, gang, if any of my followers have been harassing, targeting, etc., any of the folks I've exchanged words with, I'm asking that you cease." That being said, a few days later, he was right back to beefing with them on Twitter and even started calling them SJWs, snowflakes, and misandrous, because I guess Shatner discovered Reddit that year. William Shatner felt so passionately about all this that his assistant launched a campaign, outlanderbullying.wordpress.com. The blog offered some fairly inoffensive and common sense advice. Don't be a dick on Twitter. And they even offered some fun Outlander-themed acronyms to help you out. For example, the Jamie method. Just be yourself. Avoid others interfering. Mute instead of block. Ignore attempts to bait you. And exit the site or app if you feel threatened. Hey, are you getting bullied by real-life shippers on Twitter? Just be yourself. The aim of the website was not just to offer good practices for fan spaces, but also provide methods to which fans could report targeted harassment. To be clear, you weren't reporting it to the website. It just gave instructions on how to report harassment on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. But controversially, the website included real person shipping, where they actually believe the two actors are together, as crossing a boundary and qualified as harassment worth reporting. And Outlander fans were not just upset with this blog for its stance on real person shipping. There was also a very valid question as to whether one man, or two men, I guess in this scenario, in a primarily female-dominated space had the right to define a good or bad fan interaction. One Tumblr user gave this response to the website: "Even with the best intentions, this blog represents censorship with a big fancy bow wrapped around it. It encourages people to report bad behavior in the form of a 140-character message that might be perceived as bullying by someone else, whether they are directly tagged or not. It bypasses the policies published by Twitter in lieu of Outlander-specific guidance that has been vetted by the proprietor of the blog. It encourages people to police and report each other. And ultimately, it has the effect of quashing a little First Amendment edict that includes the ability to have free speech." And while again, I personally don't know if real person shipping can be practiced ethically, I do agree that what constitutes bullying and harassment is never black and white. It is very scenario specific, and of course everyone's going to have their own different definitions, so I can't understand that concern. But because this blog wasn't designed for you to report specifically to William Shatner whenever you saw people talking about Sam and Katrina, ultimately I don't know how much Outlander fan discussion this blog would have actually censored or prevented. This feels more just like a petty vanity project of William Shatner personally. And of course, Sam and Katrina shippers do still exist today. This blog did not erase them. Unlike the Larry ship or the Gaylor ship or Dan and Phil, I found that a lot of Sam and Katrina shippers of today don't actually really like Sam and Katrina that much. When the show was new, these shippers were very enthusiastic about this relationship, and it seems like they thought it was just a matter of time before they would be in a public relationship. But now, those that do still believe that they are together seem to have a lot of anger towards Sam and Katrina for, in their minds, not just admitting it already. I guess the difference is, for example, a lot of the Larry shippers really infantilize Harry Styles and Louis Tomlinson, where they can't come out because of a contract. They want to, but they're forced not to by very powerful groups. Whereas I think a lot of Sam and Katrina shippers have at this point accepted that Starz is not necessarily the one preventing their lead actors from being publicly together. There's just not really an incentive for Starz to do that. And in their minds, again, it's much more likely that Sam and Katrina themselves are just keeping up this lie so that they can hang on to their privacy, which they famously have asked for many times, which by their logic is a bad thing because Sam and Katrina have created this shipping frenzy with their chemistry, so they're to blame for all of the madness that has followed. So from an outside perspective, an Outlander perspective like mine, it seems like this group of fans have assumed that Sam and Kate are together, made up this whole conspiracy, if you will, up in their minds, and then gotten mad at Sam and Katrina for not confirming the thing that they made up. it did not exist, or at least doesn't seem to exist to the extent that they think it does. Like, there were a few posts I found getting mad at Sam Ewan specifically for still not being in a relationship, and may I just say they were so unhinged? I would like to hear your thoughts about Sam's Telegraph interview. It's always funny to read that Outlander doesn't give him time for a relationship in the last few years, but that this problem wasn't a problem in the early years when he had his relationships on public display. And he had significantly more in longer filming days when most of the story was just about Jamie and Claire. Some would say, which is it? Is it Outlander leaves him no time for a relationship? Or is it because he is not relationship material due to his father trauma? Oh, first, Sam won't get into a relationship because he has trauma from his father's abandonment. Next is that he's too busy with work. Like, be so serious right now. Let's not assume that Sam Ewan is using his childhood trauma as a means to cover up his relationship to y'all right now. Like, I don't think that's what he's doing. Over the years, Sam and Katrina have only had smaller and smaller social media presences, and I don't think that's a coincidence. Sam Ewan does not have a Twitter anymore, but when he did in 2020, he made a post detailing 6 years of constant bullying, harassment, stalking, and false narrative. He said he was being accused of manipulating fans, being a closet homosexual, or trying to mislead or extort fans for money. And I can confirm I have seen all of those accusations in my research. I remember I saw one blog post where someone was like, I can't believe they won't admit they're together, even after we donated to all the charities they promoted. Guess I won't be supporting those anymore. That might be another indicator. If you're boycotting charitable organizations solely in protest of two people you like on a TV show not dating, that's another indicator of perhaps needing to reevaluate your priorities. So are Sam and Katrina together? No. Call me crazy, but when one actor says that they're married and have a child with one guy and have actually never dated the other guy, I just believe them. And if it turns out that I'm wrong, even if it's all true, we're not entitled to their private lives. If they secretly are married and have 5 kids out in the woods somewhere, good for them. It doesn't impact my life or any of our lives, so I think we can just let it go. But I also know that's probably an easier thing said than done. Well, folks, that is all I have for today. Would love to know your thoughts on this, especially if you are in the Outlander fandom and have a better understanding of that show than I do. Would very much appreciate it. As always, if you want to see more from me, I am streaming on Twitch a few times a week and re-uploading the VODs of that on my second channel. Or you can go over and support me on Patreon, where I upload a monthly bonus video on whatever topics my patrons choose. This month, we talked about the 2020 anti-MLM drama that I've just been stewing over for the past 3 years. But of course, if you don't want to do any of that, that's totally cool too. You could, however, maybe, if you like this video, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.